Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Say hello to my little friend. It's just a chess. This is a pawn. Anyways, man, you guys know that we have the Altibox Norway chess going on right now. So I went ahead and grabbed one of the games. This is Wesley versus Dommaraju Gukesh. And this is round number 4. And they are playing a Blitz section at the moment. So I believe that it's 3 minutes with a 2 or 3 second increment, and that's the time control. But of course, for all of my people coming from the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking magkaibigan. Mabuting pagbati. Ingat lagi to you guys. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Anybody who is coming from India, more specifically the Chennai area, I will say Vanakkam and Nandri. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by and taking a look at my stuff. But if you guys are ready to go, take a look, see what we got for this game, homie. We got the move knight to f3. Very versatile move. You're really not wanting to commit to anything as white. You're just kind of seeing what black wants to do. So we do see knight to f6. And this is personally how I respond to the knight to f3. And then we can kind of get into some transpositions, see how it goes. We got the move c4. We got e6. We got knight to c3. We got d5. And we actually have an English opening. And it is called the Agincourt defense, but I'm going to get into some transpositions in a minute. But like I said, we did see knight c3, d5. We got the move e3, bishop to d6. We got b3, castles by black, bishop to b2, knight to c6. And then we do have the move d4. And some of you guys that play d4 will notice like, hey, man, this really looks kind of like a d4 opening like as well. Like I said, I'm going to go into some transpositions real quick. There are many different ways to get to this position. I'll just go through a couple of them real quick. So if we start with d4, we would probably, to get to this position, we would probably have something like this. d4, d5, c4, knight c6, knight f3, e6, knight c3, knight f6, b3, bishop d6, bishop b2, castles, and then we got e3. And you can see that the position is completely identical. And this is actually called the Queen's Gambit Decline Chigarin defense. So that is one of the other ways to get there. Another way is if you just play e6 up from jump. And then you got, these moves going and getting into the same position that we saw before. And this is actually called the Queen's Gambit Decline 3 Knights variation. So as you can see, they call it different things. One of the major things about certain players that are of very high level are players that are capable of understanding these transpositions, like how you get into the same exact position through different move orders. It helps them like kind of streamline their opening preparation, and it also helps them get deeper into positions because they're not having to worry about all the stuff on the side. At the end of the day, transpositions is also used too when you're playing somebody. If you want to try to get the game unfamiliar to them, you want to kind of like switch the move order up. Maybe they'll make some mistakes and stuff like that. That's definitely a strategy to use as well. But like I said, we did see this position here. We got the move pawn takes c4, pawn takes c4. We got the move e5. You kind of have to act if you're black, because if you notice, black just has 1 pawn in the center of the board and white has 3. In this central part. So, I mean, we really don't want white to start just pushing their pawns and knocking our pieces around, creating forks like so. So we have to counteract in the center. We got the move e5, like I said, bishop to e2. We got the rook over to e8. We got castles by white. Pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, pawn takes d4. So you can see that things have shifted. We've definitely, made this rook come alive on this completely open file. So, I mean, black, they got a little something, something. So we got bishop to f5, we got bishop to f3, tickling that pawn on b7. We really don't want this pawn to drop. Of course, we couldn't do it now because we don't want to line our bishops up on the same file, because this rook is going to make it kind of hard to live. But we do see the move c6, just protecting all of that, keeping everything solid. We got queen to b3, knight goes down to g4, and it's a not so subtle attack. On this pawn over here, you probably could take with either one of them if you wanted to. This probably being a little better to damage the structure. So we don't want to see that. So we see the move g3. We got h5, trying to create a hook. So some of you guys that play against like fianchetto positions, whether you're black or white, you know that this is a very common theme. When you have the little fianchetto, pawn, you use one of your wing pawns to try to like create a hook and to, kind of try to open the position up a little bit, especially if you have a bishop on one of these diagonals. It does make it very beneficial for you to rip open this position and pin this pawn down. So we do see rook a to e1. The queen goes down to d7. Knight goes to e4. And we don't necessarily want to trade off either one of our bishops if we're black here. So we do see bishop going back to f8. We got the rook up to e2, preparing to double on the e file. We got a rook a to d8, rook f to e1. We got the move b5. Pawn takes b5. Pawn takes b5, and then we do have the move h3. And I will say, I mean, both players, they're literally in the same exact position. Like, neither side really has like an advantage over the other. The only thing I will say is you do kind of have to be a little bit careful, moving all these pawns in front of your king. Because as you can see, the position is getting a little bit open for white's king. So you definitely need some care when you're playing in this way. So we do see a knight to h6. Knight goes to c5, attacking the queen, but we do see bishop taking c5, pawn taking c5. We got the rook taking e2, rook taking e2, and then bishop taking h3. And you guys probably might be wondering, okay, wait a minute. Like, isn't white just down a pawn, though? I mean, what are they getting for this pawn? Like, right here, right? Because, you have black has 5 pawns, white has 4. So it kind of seems like, from a material standpoint, black is kind of winning. Well, the things that you have to consider in the position if you are white, though, is yes, you are down a pawn, but what do you have in exchange for the pawn? Like, do you have any compensation? Well, first of all, we have a completely passed pawn on the c file, so that's something that's important. Also, we have double bishops. These double bishops plus this passed pawn is definitely worth more than the pawn that you just gave up on h3. So, every position is not created equal. Physical material doesn't always mean an advantage. So we do see the move c6. I mean, pushing the pawn. I mean, we got to try to, get something rolling. Because like I said, that was one of our strengths in the position. So let's go ahead and hook that up. The queen goes over to f5. We see the move queen over to c3. We got the move f6. And you actually do have to be a little bit careful in this position. What we see in the position from Wesley So is the move rook to e7. And as you guys can see, the bar goes way down. Dommaraju Gukesh has I don't want to say a complete win, but they have a very, very crushing move that he can play in the position. If you want to go ahead and pause the video and try to guess that move, go ahead and do so. All right, so you guys might be wondering, at first, the queen came over here to f5, pretty active square, and it is, putting some pressure on this bishop, but at the moment, the bishop isn't, before this particular situation, the bishop isn't really in danger, right? After we see the move rook to e7, there is, like I said, there's a crushing move that Gukesh can play in the position, and it is because of the fact that, you are able to put this rook down on d3 and double attack the queen and the bishop. And so if you guess the move rook to d3, you would be absolutely correct. There is a way to, put extra pressure on this bishop while simultaneously attacking this queen. Unfortunately, in the position for Gukesh, he does not see this move. He's down to, looks like 8 seconds at this point. So, I mean, of course, when you get down to like really, really low time, I mean, it is hard to find these moves because, you got to calculate and it pretty much has to come to you immediately. So clearly it wasn't something that did. But the problem with this particular situation is where do you go if you're white? Like, what do you do? Because there's no way to continue to, protect this bishop. The computer gives a really, really crazy, like, you have to like sacrifice the whole kitchen sink line. And it goes like so. The rook would come up to e8 with check. The king would come down to f7. And the only way to protect this rook is to go bishop takes h5 with check. Deflecting the queen over to h5 and then taking the rook here. And then the king would be taking, here. And the problem that you have for white is you're down some material. And yes, you do have this passed pawn, but this bishop is actually very effectively holding this queening square. And also, you don't have any checks that you can put. Like, because you'd love to bring your queen up here and then, I mean, cut the king off like this and then basically just checkmate. But the bishop is making that impossible. In the game, like I said, we did see rook to e7. We actually in the game saw knight to g4, which just allows, white to basically continue to be in the game. And I mean, Wesley So is not missing his chance a second time. What the computer wanted in this position before you go rook to e7 is to just go c7. And this is going to be forcing the rook over to, I mean, you either can check down here or you can move the rook over, but it puts the rook in a completely passive position, which is what we actually start to see coming up pretty soon. After we see this position here, we see c7, and then the rook does go over to c8, and you can see that this is not where you want your rook at. You don't want your rook literally tied down to one square. So, you know, Wesley so realizes his mistake, like what he kind of left hanging, and he doesn't miss a second time. So we see bishop taking g4, pawn taking g4. And I mean, when you get into a really, really superior position, you do want to be in situations where you just kind of like start to reduce the opponent's material, and you can just trade down and get into a favorable endgame or just a favorable game period. The queen does go to b3 with check. The king slides over to h8. We see queen up to f7, which of course is threatening checkmate on g7. And we're not even worried about this check down here, which is what we do see, queen to b1 check. The king just comes up to h2. We're not worried about losing our bishop because of course we have checkmate on the board. The queen does come back to h7, you know, trying to save checkmate, but unfortunately you have the move rook to e8 with check. And it is in this position that Dommaraju Gukesh does resign the game. Now, I mean, I think a majority of people can look and say, okay, this is completely lost. But, I mean, if you want to kind of take a look at a possible variation, it's actually a mate in 3. There really isn't anything else you can do. So you would have to take here with the rook, and then you would be taking here with the queen. And then there's no other moves other than to go here. You would be looking at queen to h5 with check, and then it's the same thing again. You know, you don't have any other moves. Like the king is always stalemated. So, I mean, when you come back down here, you have a situation where you have queen to c8 with checkmate. And the problem is this. You remember earlier I was saying that the bishop is holding that square? Well, not after this pawn captures. The pawn is blocking this bishop's ability to protect that square. So, I mean, you know, that was one of the benefits of trading pieces down, you know, so that you can just, you know, get rid of some defenders and put this bishop in a really, really sad place. And this little discovery wasn't going to work earlier, you know, let's say this or whatever. You know, the bishop wasn't really going to be able to move because white just had too much pressure and they were threatening too many mates. So, like I said, backing up here, we were in this position and Gukesh does resign the game. So that is a nice little game, if I do say so myself. You know, like I said, it's Blitz. So, I mean, you know, you're going to see like a little bit of mistakes, kind of like when you play Bullet. But I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Maraming salamat aking makaibigan. Pausa na nunod ng aking mga video. Nandri for anybody coming up from Southern India. And I'll see you guys next time.